Okay, so let's get started with what you're all here for. So I'm going to talk about a few things. I'll just give you a quick program overview, a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the University of Toronto and the Department of Computer Science, which is the Master of Science in Applied Computing unit. I'm going to talk a lot about the Master of Science in Applied Computing, and I'm also going to touch on the application process. And even if you're attending this and you've already started your application or you've already submitted, a little bit more on what you can expect from that process. So a little bit about University of Toronto. So we are the #1 university in Canada, and we usually feature in the global top 20. As I said, we're the leading institution of learning discovery and knowledge creation. So we have close to, and probably it is at this now because this number gets out of date quite quick, close to 1,000 programs of study. We have a student population of around 90,000, and that's not limited to graduate students by any stretch. That's also including undergrads as well. And we take over quite a large part of the downtown core at U of T and also out at Mississauga and Scarborough. We have 1.1 billion research funds awarded each year, which leads into why we're the leading institution. We have close to 22,000 faculty and staff. It probably is at that now. We have around 600,000 alums, and then we also contribute billions of dollars to the Canadian economy each year. So you can see in terms of like resourcing and things, we're pretty much up there with some of the best in the world. Our home unit for the Masters of Science in Applied Computing is the Department of Computer Science, and I'm going to move on to why I'm explaining the home unit first. So our home unit is the Department of Computer Science, which actually started over 50 years ago as the University of Toronto Computation Centre. I think we were one of the first to bring a computer into Canada. We actually rank #1 in Canada for computer science, and we're among the best computer science departments in the world. So we sit up there in the top 10 with the likes of Carnegie Mellon University, ETH Zurich, National University of Singapore, MIT. So we are in that group in the top 10. As you would expect, if we've got that kind of ranking, our faculty are world leaders in their fields, and we span a whole bunch of different areas of computer science research. And one of the critical things is that we're for graduate studies, students are located in the downtown campus. The City of Toronto at the moment is a booming tech hub, and that hasn't stopped because of COVID. We're going into other areas. There's companies from the US that are moving up here and opening offices. So it's actually quite a vibrant tech scene right now. And there's everything from small startups to big multinationals that you might know. So in terms of actually just having the experience and kind of building a lifestyle here, when you're finished in your program, we're a pretty great city to be in. In terms of the Department of Computer Science, it's located in 4 buildings, as I said, on the downtown campus. And we have the Bain Centre for Information Technology, the Sandra Fleming Building, and the D.L. Pratt Building, all located within a couple of minutes walk from each other. And then our newest addition is the new MSCAC space, which is in the Ontario Power Building, which is a 5-minute walk away from all the other buildings. It's actually where I'm sitting now. And I recommend that if you're interested in seeing a little bit about what the space looks like, because we were hoping to open it in September 2020, but circumstances did not permit us to do that. We hope to do it soon. Check out my LinkedIn profile, and I actually have a video of the space on that. So please have a look at it, and it's pretty cool if you're thinking about coming to this program for 2021 to see the purpose-built space that we've put together. So as I mentioned, the Department of Computer Science spans a whole range of different areas. I mean, we've had quite a huge impact on the field, and these are just some examples of some of the things we've worked on. So things like early work in the 1980s on touchscreen tablets, before anyone really knew what those were, and that they existed. One of the things we're most famous for, I think, now speaking to some of the applicants to the program, is that we're leading the state-of-the-art machine learning and neural networks. We've also been involved in some of the animation systems, and we move work forward in that domain as well. So we really span a whole range of different areas and different innovations, some of which are in industry as well. In the Department of Computer Science, we have 2 types of graduate programs. So we have our research stream programs, which are the MSc Research and PhD programs, where you're required to do research in a particular faculty member's lab, and submit a thesis paper or major research report at the end if you're in the master's program. I'm not going to talk too much about those programs today. We actually have a couple of sessions coming up, one on September 4th and one on September 6th in the department. So if you're interested in hearing a bit more about the research stream and you're thinking I might apply to both MSc and research, then please do go to those sessions and you'll hear a little bit more about applying to graduate school and what those two programs are looking for. The one I am going to talk about is the Applied Research Stream program, which is the Master of Science in Applied Computing. And that's the program I work on, so I'm super biased. This presentation is going to be all about that. So the mission of the Master of Science in Applied Computing program, and this goes back as far as when it started in 2010, is that we're committed to educating the next generation of world-class innovators. The hope was that students from this program, they still do, predominantly do go into industry and apply what they've learned during the whole 16-month program to really make an impact in real-world situations across a range of industries. It's also our mission to add to the knowledge economy, and one of the side effects of this program has been that it's forged broader University of Toronto academic industry partnerships. The program is actually very unique in that it bridges the gap between academia and industry quite well. And there's really no other institutions that do it in the way we do. So if you're coming to the program, you're going to have a pretty unique experience, and one that we hope students will enjoy as well. As a brief background, I mentioned this, we're quite a baby program in terms of where we are, in comparison to other U of T programs, and certainly in comparison to our master's program. We started in 2010 with 6 students, and now in 2020 we're at 68, and the intention is to grow in the next few years. As I mentioned, our home unit is the Department of Computer Science, and we did start out as a pure computer science program. In the last few years, we've decided to span other disciplines in collaboration with other top 10 departments across the university, these being statistical sciences, mathematics, and physics. So we cover a whole range of different disciplines and areas as well. To comment, and I want to make sure that I've cleared this up before I go into the anatomy of the program. We really do refer to the MSc program as a community-based program, and the reason for this is that we bring in MSc students as a cohort. So all the students in the group share offices, go through the same experiences, and hit all the same milestones in the program together. And it's been one of the great strengths of the program that we work quite closely as a team with our students as well. And we have a pretty solid alumni network that are looking forward to helping. But one of the first reasons I think you should, if you're considering the program that you may enjoy, is because you have the opportunity to blend the best of graduate learning and research with an opportunity to apply this knowledge in industry. And by this I mean, for the first 8 months, you spend studying on your graduate courses. Those courses are the same courses as the MSc and PhD students are taking. You all sit in the same rooms together, so you're all learning the same content, and you all get to share that experience. And that's one of the best parts of this program. With the exception of 2 mandatory courses, we don't have specific courses that are only for this program. You really are learning about cutting-edge technologies in research as it stands right now, and learning from some of the best faculty in the world. And to elaborate on that, you have access to world-class researchers, and these span a whole range of different disciplines. And I mentioned earlier, we're best known for machine learning, but we also span a whole range of different things like systems, robotics, graphics, to name but a few. And one of the most exciting things about the Department of Computer Science as it stands right now is that we're actually hiring quite a lot of new faculty, and with that comes new courses and new experiences and people that you get to learn from. As part of the program, it does require an internship, so you have access to a large network of company partners. Currently, we work with around 400 to 500, and we are growing this list to span a whole range of different areas, so that there are internships available to you regardless of the experience you're looking for and regardless of the areas you want to focus in. Along with that, and this comes back to the point about community, not only do you make connections and friends amongst your cohort, but you also have access to the previous cohort. You also have access to the alumni network, where we have around 300 students. And one of the most exciting innovations we had was that we actually got to launch the mentorship program, which basically means students in the cohort are being matched up with some of our alums that have been in industry for a little while, and have the opportunity to talk to them more informally about the program and what life's like in industry and things they should be doing, which I think is super important in terms of the support we're providing to students in this program. And so that, as I said, we're going through the first cycle, so I'm pretty excited about that as well. So to give a description of the program overview, the program start to finish is 16 months in duration. And when you're thinking about this program, think about it in two halves. So for the first 8 months, students spend completing their graduate courses. MSc students are all expected to complete 4 elective graduate courses. These are supposed to be sufficiently technical and in line with the requirements of your particular concentration. Students also complete communication for computer sciences during that time, which covers the soft skills that you're going to need going into the industry. So things like how to work effectively as part of a team, conflict resolution, presentation skills. That's really what we're covering. We do resume preparation during that time too. And then semester, so about 4 months of we actually also complete the applied research internship expo, which is where most students will find it. The MSc research and business development officers actually work very actively with company partners to make sure that bespoke positions for MSc students are located at companies. So one of the things we're working on right now is a lot of projects. Projects and projects, but those will then will figure out recruit time to students. And we hold something that's called, it's really like a mini career fair, and the only students that go to the career fair are MSc students, and the only people that go to the career fair are companies that are specifically looking for students to start an internship at their company May 1. So you're not competing with other students around internship. The resources are there to allow you, and it's really just your trying to find them as part of an MSc specific position. The 8 months of the program is where you spend time out in internship. You are required to complete an applied research internship as part of the program how you're doing it. And at the same time, in your company completing your internship, technical entrepreneurship. It focuses more on the business aspects, so things to expect in industry. Our hope is that you'll go on and be leaders in this field. Of course, is really how would you maybe communicate about areas that the business should you be concerned with working within a company? Because everybody would be a sole contributor, working with other departments and teams, some of which may be technical, some of which may not be. And what is the structure of running a technical team look like? What are some of the techniques that they apply when they're trying to manage technical innovation at a company? So that's really what that course focuses on. And then the whole program culminates in the 2 things: the Applied Research in Action Showcase, which is where all the students who are finishing the program show off the innovations they've been doing. And this year it's on November 26th, and it's going to be virtual. So you will all get an invitation to come to that event sometime in the next couple of weeks. And it's a great opportunity to just come down, see what we do, and actually talk to students in the program as well. And the other thing you have to do to finish up the program is to write up your research report on what you've been doing during your internship. And that just requires you to outline the problem you've been trying to solve, some of the methodologies and techniques that you've used to try and solve that problem, what have been the results, what were some unexpected things, any further development you can see in that project. So really like a little research report is how you finish this off. So in terms of the structure I've just outlined, really it goes for any concentration in the MSc program. As I mentioned earlier, we actually have collaborations with 3 other departments: computer science, statistical sciences, mathematics, and physics. So we work with those departments to deliver 4 different concentrations in the Master of Science and Applied Computing program. And we have the computer science concentration, data science, applied math, and quantum. Applied math and quantum are pretty new. So applied math only got approved in August last year. And quantum actually only just got approved at the beginning of this year. So quantum for the first time will be launched for 2021. In terms of how they differ, the concentrations differ according to the courses that you're taking. So with computer science, you're required to take 2 computer science courses and then 2 other. These can be from computer science, but they can also be from other areas like electrical engineering, math, statistics. You really have a whole range. The real rule of thumb is they have to be sufficiently technical and at graduate level. For data science, you're required to do 2 computer science courses and 2 statistics courses. And for applied math, 2 computer science and 2 math. And then for quantum, following the same pattern as the others, 2 computer science and 2 physics. In terms of the internships, this slide is really just to give you an example of the kind of range we have. This is not all the companies that we work with. As I mentioned, the list is around 500 companies deep. So it's kind of difficult to fit 500 companies on a slide and still be able to see them all. So you can see here that we work with companies that you would know. So people like Goldman Sachs, Google, Samsung. We work with smaller companies in the healthcare sector, for example, like Bridge7 and Phenomic AI. We've worked with Australian companies like Uber. We've worked with CPP Investment Board. So you can see the range of assets. So we're really covering everything from small startups right the way through to large multinational companies. And these experiences come with different projects every single year. And really the internship projects that we solicit are based on the student decision, but this just gives you an idea of the kind of range of who we're working with. So in terms of funding, the MSc program is a self-funded program. However, OSAP is available or equivalent, depending on where you are in Canada and which province you're in, is available for domestic students. And if international students are looking for options to fund their studies, we work with a company called Prodigy Finance, who provide loans to international students. Will provide loans for anything payable to the university, like tuition fees and residence, for example. We also encourage students as and when that they apply for scholarships. So some of the things we've nominated students for in the past are things like the Vector Scholarship in AI, which provides, I think it's around $17,000 to students, regardless of status in Canada, coming to study on this program. And we usually get a bunch of those every year. We also are providing 10 entry scholarships for students on merit level, which are $10,000. And then if any other scholarships come along the way, then we encourage students to apply. Internships are paid though, and it is expected to more than offset the tuition fee. So the cohort that are currently on internship, their average salary was $65,000 for the 8-month period, and that's in Canadian dollars, and that's for 8 months. And then during the internship, they also apply for grants and match funds to offset the cost of the internship, meaning that some of their salary is also tax-free. And I'm specifically not going into that too much right now, because it's not really something you can do until you get to that point, and we walk you through that on the program. So in terms of a comparison of MSc to other programs, I mentioned at the beginning this was quite a unique program in its approach, and this just really summarizes why, because it's not specifically a professional program, but it's not a full research program either, but it does have similarities, more to a research program, I would say, than to a professional program. So from our program, students are expected to complete the same breadth as the research program in terms of their courses. We actually follow the PhD requirements as opposed to the MSc requirements in terms of this notion of having we require students to complete 4 courses across 3 research areas. We also ask students to do an applied research internship. This is different from a co-op that you might see in a regular professional program, because it does actually require a research component. That may differ according to the company and what their focus is. Some companies focus more on pure research, some focus more on the product, but it still has to be there. Doing something like 100% development wouldn't really on this program, and it certainly wouldn't qualify to allow you to complete the program successfully. In comparison to a research program, however, you're not working on a research thesis in a lab, so that's probably differ a little bit. Faculty supervision in this program varies. You do have opportunity to work with an academic supervisor, certainly during the internship component. That person is not selected until you have your internship, and the choice of academic supervisor is based on the research and work that your internship is about. So if you were doing, say, a computational linguistics oriented internship, you would have someone from that group, from our faculty. If you were doing something in like risk analytics, it might be more appropriate for you to have someone from the statistics department. So it really does vary. And we ask that you meet with that academic supervisor no less than 6 times during your internship, but it can vary. Some students meet with their faculty supervisor every single week and they're super integrated with the project. Some students are like, I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of academic expertise in the research group I'm in at my company, so I don't need to meet with them as much. And that's what we mean by varying. Professional programs have little, if any, faculty supervision traditionally. And then with a research program, you're in a lab, so you have the intensive faculty supervision. A lot of our students do get made an offer of employment on exit from their internship. Around 94% to date have been made an offer. Whether they stay or not is up to them, and sometimes we see students switch companies and go to the company that they're friends at, for example. But most transition to industrial research positions in their research groups. In professional programs, it may not be industrial research, it might just be a regular industry job, and that's where most students go. And then with the research program, some transition to industry jobs, and again, that can vary in terms of research content. The biggest difference, though, in terms of transitioning to anywhere is really where you can go academically after this program. So with MSc-AC, we're seeing a rising number of students go on to the PhD program. And this program is considered academically rigorous enough to gain admission to the PhD. Most students, to be honest, stay at the University of Toronto, purely because the key thing with getting into a PhD program is that you have an academic supervisor saying they want you in their lab. And a lot of connections are built through the academic supervisor relationship during the internship. So most will stay at U of T, but we've also had students being made offers for the Mila Lab in Montreal and Princeton. We have a student going to the National Nanyang Technological University in Singapore to work with a specific group that his academic supervisor in MSc-AC was actually connected to. And we've also had students go to places like CMU. So it is definitely possible. With professional programs, it's very rare to transition to the PhD. It's not unachievable, but it's rare. And then with the research programs, around 50% transition to PhD. So a quick mention about the application process. So if you're wanting to submit an application, you need to have completed at least stage 1 by December 1st, 2020. And that's just filling out a profile on the School of Graduate Studies website. Stage 2 needs to be completed by December 3. Following December 3, the committee, our admissions committee, reviews all the applications and goes through them top to bottom. Every single document you've submitted will get reviewed at this stage. And then they begin to select students that we want to hear more from. So the interview is indicative that your application was strong enough and we want to hear more. We release invitations in batches. So don't panic if you read on Grad Cafe or something like that. Oh, I was selected for interview and you haven't heard from us specifically, because we do it in batch, and there's no it's not done in order of preference. It's literally as we review things and our committee pulls things out, they will ask for interviews to be actioned on. Not everyone has an interview, but certainly everyone admitted to the program will have gone through the process. Following the interviews, we, again in batches, we then review the interview notes and we make final decisions on applications. And then these are communicated to applicants. So anywhere between December and March, you might hear from us for an interview and you will hear an outcome of your offer. And we get back to students regardless of what the decision is, every single person. So keep an eye on your email. Our aim is to finish this up by the end of March. The documents you're required to provide, so we'll be expecting from your application to see copies of transcripts and everything from undergraduate upwards, and that includes not just your school degree, but if you did an exchange semester somewhere and those grades aren't included, we need to see that too. You don't need to provide things like high school certificates at this point, because the decision on whether you're admitted to the Masters is based on anything from undergraduate upwards. We also like to see a resume, so anything you've been working on, projects, research experiences, industry experiences, we want to see it at this point. A statement of purpose that outlines why you would be a good fit for the Masters of Science and Applied Computing program. TOEFL and GRE scores if as applicable. So with TOEFL and GRE, if you've studied at an institution where the language of instruction was English, you don't necessarily need to provide this. The most we would ask for is a letter if we're unsure. With GRE scores, if you haven't studied in a Canadian institution before, we'll be expecting to see them. They're not mandatory to provide, and it's certainly, your application won't be eliminated if you don't provide them, but they are considered to strengthen your application if you do provide them. Additional documents, so this can be anything of your choice, and we've had students provide things like research papers that they've worked on. Some have provided video essays, links to GitHub repos if you want us to see examples of your work. So anything here, anything that you think will really strengthen your application and show off what a great student you'll be in the program. And then details of 3 referees that we can contact for references. Ideally, we're looking to see at least 2 academic referees. And with the final one, it can be an academic referee, or you can use an industry reference if you have a strong reference. Think about the people that are going to represent you best. So for general admissions requirements, at minimum, we're looking for you to have completed an appropriate undergraduate degree for the concentration you're applying to. You don't necessarily need to have a specific major in the concentration, so you don't need to have completed the CS major, for example, for the computer science concentration, but we would be looking to see, if you're coming from an alternative background, that you've completed senior level courses, and by that I mean 3rd and 4th year undergrad equivalents, that are relevant. So if you were applying for computer science, we'd be looking to see examples of 3rd and 4th year core CS courses like algos and data structures or operating systems. If you're thinking about data science, we'd be looking to see evidence of senior level statistics courses and senior level CS courses. So we're looking to see you have an appropriate background. We're also looking to see that you have a standing equivalent of at least a U of T B+ in your final year. This grading that I've listed here, 77 to 79%, is specific to U of T, and it may vary according to which country or school you're coming from. So that is very specific. Work experience is preferred, but it's not necessarily required. And research experience, again, if you've got it, we want to hear about it, but it's not necessarily required. So that is the end of my presentation. If you still have questions, then you can ask me now in the Q&A, and I'm going to try and get through as many as possible. You can visit our website at mscac.utoronto.ca. You can email us, or you can book an appointment with myself or my program assistant, Susan Lee. We're available to do that via the website, and you can go online and book. And as I said, for the research stream programs, you can join us later on in the week, November 4th and November 6th, to hear a little bit more about the program on the research stream side, and also hear briefly from me again. And final thing, again, reminder, please, if you're interested in the program, please feel free to join us at ARIA. It is going to be virtual this year, and I think we're going to deliver it in a pretty innovative way. It's going to be pretty fun. Usually the event attracts 500 to 700 people, and it's a mixture of industry partners, prospective students, current students that have just joined the MScac program. So it's a lot of fun, and we hope the virtual event is going to be just as much fun. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to move over to your questions that you've added in the Q&A. And I can see there's one in the chat, and thank you for whoever corrected. Jihao, I think you corrected and said we need to ask this in the Q&A, so thank you for that reminder to that particular individual. So this individual, the one question in the chat, just in case it's not in the Q&A, is, can we present professional specializations and certificates relevant to the program? Yes, if you want to include those, that's totally fine, but please make sure they're relevant. And the key thing we're really looking for, bear in mind, is that we are looking to see something that we can equate to maybe an undergraduate level thing. So how does the internship program adapt with the current pandemic situation? Is there any difficulty with the current cohort and doing an internship with companies? This is a great question. So in terms of actually finding internships, we were pretty lucky in that pretty much all our students were placed by the time Toronto specifically went into lockdown. And And we only had one student where the company had to cancel the internship completely. And we managed to find her another internship within about a week that she was super interested in, with like her, I think she'd been trying to decide between two companies when she got made offers, and it was the other one that she didn't accept the offer for that she actually went to. So it worked out pretty well. With adapting to it, a lot of the companies did, apart from the first couple of weeks where there was a bit of panic where people had to close down, the companies have adapted extremely well to it and have been able to onboard people very successfully remotely. Some companies have moved back to students being able to go into the office at least 1 day a week at this point in time, specifically if they're based in Canada. A couple of the difficulties was location. So there was a couple of students that were supposed to be in the US, and obviously they had to stay up here. But for the most part, it's been pretty great. The only thing that's missing a little bit is the interaction in person at the company offices. But for the most part, the students are doing super well. So as we consider ourselves extremely lucky on this program that the internships happened with really super minimal disruption, and the students are still having a great experience. Okay, do we need to have a thesis to join the computer science program? For this program, no. I mean, if you have a thesis and you want to tell us about it, that's great. Equally, if you have project experience, we want to hear about it, work experience, we also want to hear about it. There's less of a focus on having a full research paper done or having exposure to research on this particular program. That would be more relevant for the research programs where they do want to see evidence of academic work you've been doing. Has U of T partnered with some companies to provide internships to its students? Yes, we have. The slide I flashed up with the internship companies are examples of companies we've partnered with, and we are very interested in the longevity of those relationships and making sure that students have interesting projects every year, especially with companies that our students have had great experiences with. So we have 3 research and business development officers on the MSCAC team, and we're a team of 9. And that's what their job is to build these partnerships and then sustain the partnerships with the companies for each year. Is it possible to register to start the program while doing the statistics and computing background requirements? That is possible. What I would recommend you do is we actually have a section. If these courses are not already on any transcripts you're uploading, there is a section in the application form where you can write about any additional courses you're doing that may be in progress or they may be complete that are not included in the transcripts. So please do write things like that in, because that lets our admissions committee know kind of a speculation on what you may have before you start the program. And if your application is otherwise strong, that's really great for us to know. Will we have access to this presentation's slides? Potentially. I'm trying to figure out a way to do this. And where to post it and things like that. And also how to get the Q&As out to people that want to know. So we'll work on that one. Okay, hi, Victoria, that's totally fine if you want to pile up questions here. Must we finish all course requirements in all 4 disciplines? If, say, I have a weak background in one of the disciplines, does that mean I need to use the elective space to perhaps fulfill the prerequisite courses in that discipline? So the 4 concentrations I outlined, you only do one of those. When we're actually admitting students to the program, we're looking very specifically at their background to figure out what concentration they best align with. On the applicant side, you also get to rank your concentrations in the order you want to be considered for them. So you don't have to complete concentrations in computer science, data science, math, and physics. You would only be completing one. And the hope is if we've admitted you that you would have sufficient background to do that, because we're pretty rigorous in our approach, and you're only completing courses to do with that discipline. Can we take art or finance courses for electives? Would the courses be mostly on the downtown campus? So most of the courses are on the downtown campus. That's where our graduate courses are. There are some courses offered over at one of our other campuses. I think it's the Mississauga campus. It's one of the robotics courses, and we offer them, I think, in fall. Some students do go over to that, but we offer them at Downtown in winter. With regards to taking art or finance courses, we would really need to know how that made sense with your study plan. As I mentioned, the strict rule of thumb is that you do 4 technical graduate courses. So something like art would not be considered in the technical realm at all. You could maybe do it as an additional course, or you might want to sit in on the course and just audit it. And by that, you just sit in on it, but you're not enrolled on it formally, and you don't get a grade for it. But it doesn't really align with what we're trying to get you to do. With finance courses, it really depends, because we do offer, certainly in the engineering department, and you can take courses from engineering as well. There are some they're finance and technically blended together. So potentially, but we need to see it. I graduated from an undergraduate program 5 years ago, and I have 5 years of work experience. Is it suitable to apply to this program? Yep, absolutely. To give everyone a sense, so every year we take like maybe 10 to 15% of students that have no work experience at all, not even an internship. And they're just great applicants. The grades are fantastic, and they've given us a very compelling reason through the statement of purpose to think this student would be a great fit for this program, we should admit. More of our students have somewhere between 1 to 4 to 1 to 5 years of experience when they apply, and maybe the reasons are they were excellent at undergraduate level, but they wanted to see what was going on in industry to make an informed decision about whether a master's degree or maybe even a PhD would be a reasonable thing. And they've decided that industry is the way they want to go, and this provides very immediate access to the kind of things they want to do in industry. Or they were excellent at undergrad but didn't ever want to come back to school, and then have realized that a master's degree will help them to get where they want to go. And obviously, again, the immediate access to industry helps. And we've also, at the other end of that, we also have 10 to 15% of people that have maybe 10 plus years experience, and they're looking to pivot, or they just want to do their master's degree. So we really have a whole range of backgrounds. So absolutely, that would be suitable. Do we need to provide GRE scores if we went to an American university? Yes, you do. Or it's not mandatory. Again, it's just considered to strengthen. But if you studied anywhere else but Canada, we'd be hoping to see them. For English tests, can it be from a range of tests mentioned on the website as TOEFL, IELTS? Yeah, MSCAC will accept the English tests that are stated by the School of Graduate Studies, which includes TOEFL, IELTS, the School of Graduate Studies. Sorry, the School of Continuing Studies has an English test that we'll accept. So just have a look at those, and we'll accept in line with that. Where can I get information about the SOP word limit for MSCAC? So this varies, and some places on the university's full university website, we list it as, it's been listed as 500 words. In other places, it hasn't been listed at all. The standard we'd be expecting to see is 1 to 2 pages maximum. So see if you can make that work. That's roughly around 500 words anyway. But yeah, 1 to 2 pages is sufficient. Anything over that is really kind of overkill. And you've got to bear in mind that our admissions committee are reading through a whole ton of these. So try and make your statements of purpose as concise as possible, and really focusing on the key information you're trying to get to us, which is why you'd be a great fit for the MSCAC program. And also when you're writing those, bear in mind what we can already see. So you don't need to list every single course you ever did, because we can see that on your transcript. And if you're going to write about research projects, maybe pick out the ones that are super interesting or that are linked to why you're applying to this program. What are the average GRE and GPA scores? So in terms of GRE, I'll give you what we're expecting to see and what we would hope to see. So we're looking to see 168 for quantitative and 158 for verbal. For the GPA, our minimum is really we're looking for students to have at least met the B+ requirement in whatever grading system is relevant, but most students will exceed that. I don't usually give out like a full, this is our average GPA, because the decision about your application is not just based on the GPA. And I think there's a tendency to kind of go, oh, if I got this exact GPA, then I'll definitely get in. That's not the case. We're looking at every single document at graduate level. We're looking at your grades, and we're looking for consistency across the grades. We're looking at your resume, your statement of purpose, your references, any other things you provided. And we also take the interview is done with a view to deciding whether you would be a good fit. So there's a whole bunch of different things. So that's why I'm not completely committing to a full GPA because of everything else that's taken into consideration. Are there any known scholarships or awards that we could apply for? So if you're looking for scholarships and awards, I recommend visiting the School of Graduate Studies website because they have a whole long list, but they're very nuanced and they sometimes get very specific into your background. So have a look through those. One of the other things we do is also when we've made offers is nominate students every single year for the Vector Scholarship. As I mentioned, that I think you get around $17,000 for that scholarship in your first academic year. So we will nominate students for that, but it is competition based. So there's nothing guaranteed that you could apply for, but we do encourage you to do so. Are professional references from seniors and or managers acceptable? Yeah, if you have like one of these where it's someone in a supervisory position and they're commenting on your ability to in industry, if they've done a graduate degree themselves, even better, they should definitely include that. Then by all means, feel free to weave that in amongst your academic references. It's appropriate. Could you please reiterate if we have to send TOEFL scores? Absolutely. So with TOEFL scores, if you studied at an institution where the language of instruction was not English, we will be expecting to see your TOEFL scores, and we can't actually communicate a decision until we have those, or we can verify that the ones you've self-reported in the application are correct. If you studied at an institution where the language of instruction was English, then you don't need to provide TOEFL scores. The most we would ask for, if there's any uncertainty, is a letter from your institution just confirming that the language of instruction was English. And I think I just answered this next question about, oh, will still providing TOEFL give any boost? You can provide it if you want, but if your language of instruction was English, don't feel it's not going to be the thing that if you provide your TOEFL scores, it will make or break your application. We focus on other elements as well. The slides mentioned the cohort size for 2020 was 68. May I know the total number of applications that were received for the same year? Yeah, so we had around 1,000 applications for that year. We usually take 5 to 10%. That cohort was actually supposed to be 107. So we were closer to the 10% actually this year, unfortunately, due to COVID. And we had a bunch of really strong applications. So we decided the cohort would be a little bigger. Unfortunately, because of COVID, a number of those students had to defer, but we were expecting to grow this year anyway, so that we don't anticipate, this will probably be a follow-up question from someone, we don't anticipate this will in fact affect our intake for 2021. Do I have to reach out to any professors for funding? No. In this case, the MSc-AC program is self-funded and you're not being accepted into a lab by a specific professor, so you don't have to reach out to them. Reaching out to a professor for funding would be far more appropriate for the research program, where the research program students are fully funded. So that would be more appropriate for there. I have 10 plus years of professional experience. Is it okay to provide 2 professional and 1 academic reference? In this situation, yes, we would probably accept that. To be honest, the longer you've been out of academia, the more realistic our expectations become about how much those connections have been kept. If you've been, say, like if you're still in school or you're a year out of academia, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to provide 2 academic references. If you've been out in industry for like 10 to 20 years, like you may not have kept that connection. So we do keep our expectations realistic as well. What can I do to improve my low grade from undergraduate school to get into the program? This is a super difficult question to answer because I mean, students have tried things in the past, like taking additional courses, especially if there's been a lot of time between the undergraduate finishing and now. So some students have tried taking additional courses to show that there is a difference. They are capable of achieving the grades that we would look for, and they'd be okay on our graduate courses, because that's the key thing when we're looking at applications. We want to be as close to 100% convinced that you're set up for success as possible, because we don't want anyone to fail on this program. So we're looking for people that are going to be capable of completing those courses. So some students have done additional courses, some students have looked at research work and things like that. But to be completely transparent, if you haven't got high grades, you may find yourself at a disadvantage, because a lot of applicants that are applying to the program have more commonly exceeded the minimum requirements we're looking for and have research and work experience. And so that one's a bit tricky. Are the letter of recommendations not required, just only the contact information? Yes, all you need to do on your side is just put in their contact information, and I recommend you tell your referee to expect an email from us. The minute you click save on the application form for the first time, the request automatically gets sent, and your referee is expected to complete the form and upload a reference. Can we submit GRE scores via ETS directly after completing stage 1, or does it have to be within the deadline? Due to the current situation, there's a delay in getting the scores. You can do it after completing stage 1. You have to self-report your scores anyway in the departmental application form. So if you know them, but you just haven't had them verified, then write them into the application form for us. Just make sure they're submitted as closely as they can be to the deadline, because we will want to verify them. What is the class size of different concentrations in the MSc program? Great question. So as I mentioned, the computer science concentration was concentration 1. So that's actually a little bit bigger than the others, because it's had more time to grow. And one of the things we have as a program that we're committed to is we want to make sure the experience is the best. So computer science is at the moment is maybe 30 to 40% of the cohort. Data science started in 2017, so that again is a little bit bigger. Applied math and quantum are very new. So we're anticipating that we'll start off with a small cohort, 6 to 10 students for each concentration. And then grow those accordingly, because there's a lot of things we have to think about when we're thinking about numbers into each specific concentration. And we want to make sure we've got the provision and the resourcing around them completely correct. So we don't want to start off with a high volume of students in the brand new concentrations, purely because it's their first years. But if we see enough qualified applicants, we still reserve the right to actually offer more spots than necessarily we would have planned for. Can I use online course certification as an additional document? Yeah, that's totally fine. Are IELTS scores accepted for the application in place of TOEFL? Yes, we'll accept anything that the School of Graduate Studies has kind of made a blanket statement about we will accept. So we will accept IELTS academic. If you haven't done TOEFL, that's totally fine. Will sending GRE scores have a positive influence along with application, or doesn't it matter? So they are considered to strengthen your application, but unlike some other institutions, if they're not there, we'll note that they're not there, but it doesn't eliminate your application. So we'll consider everything else. And there's also other things we put above GRE scores as well, like academic transcripts and qualifications, for example. Would self-taught computer science courses from online courses offset the lack of CS background? I have a background in actuarial science and I'm bringing myself up to speed. Again, a bit of a difficult question. So if you have online courses and you include information about those in your application, we'll certainly take it into consideration. The unfortunate thing with a lot of online courses, and this doesn't stand for all of them, but for most online courses, is they're graded in a pass-fail way. So it's not immediately obvious to us, and it's very difficult for us to quantify how well you've understood the content. It's easier for us to do this with actually formal academic courses taken at accredited institutions that are graded in a measurable way. So sure, we'll take them into consideration, but do be aware that all we can see is a form at that point. So it's very difficult for us to actually quantify. Due to COVID, based on the number of applications so far and the data for previous years, do we expect to have more applications or less? That is a conversation we're having in our team actually right now. At the moment, as far as applications go, we're pretty much around the same as we were last year. Slightly higher actually than we were pre-pandemic. So I would hope it's at least the same. I don't know where to set my expectations and what effect that's going to have. I also think there's other external factors that we will be expecting to see an impact from as well. And the obvious thing is what's going on in the US right now with the election. So I think we'll see some difference depending on how that plays out also. Hi, Agam. I'm an international student from India and I'm currently in my 7th semester and my final semester will end in May 21. So how and when do I provide my final year grades? Also, I really like this program since the time I came across your website. Amazing. So in terms of providing us with the initial stuff for application, what we would be expecting to see if you haven't finished your degree, and there'll be a number of students in this position, is a transcript that really contains as much information as it can, including the courses that you are still to take and still to complete, just for our own information, so we have complete information. Any decision about your application will then be made based on what we can see. So for example, and what I mean by that is, for example, if you're a student that's got basically grades that are some flavor of A from years 1 through to years 3.5, so your first semester, then it's likely that trajectory is going to maintain the same. If you're a student that hasn't necessarily got consistent grades, we might actually hold and see based on what we've seen in the trajectory. It really varies according to case. So just moral of this, upload the whole transcript. In terms of providing your final grades, if you haven't completed your degree at the time of admission, there's likely, and you're made an offer, there's likely going to be a condition in the offer that says, please provide your transcripts confirming that you've met the minimum requirements by August 31st, before the program starts. And then we would be expecting for you to arrange, once you've finished your degree, that you arrange for your institution to send us those final transcripts, and then we'll measure those and make sure you met the minimum requirements. Okay, 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try and rattle through these. If I graduate in 3 years and I'm currently in my last year and I will not have enough grades for my 400 level now, which grades will be looked at for admission? I think I just answered that one. We'll look at the whole transcript. With an actuarial science background, what computing courses will you recommend to take to help understanding in the program with the data science concentration? So in your case, we would be looking to see senior level undergraduate CS courses. We have 3 listed on our website, which are algorithms and data structures, databases, and OS, but we're not committed to those exact courses, and you're not going to be eliminated if you don't have those exact 3 courses. So I mean, one of the recommended ones from our side is algorithms and data structures. But if you came to us and said, hey, I have a senior machine learning course, or I've done like a vision course or something like that, we would still take it into consideration. I worked as a data scientist and have experience of 11 years. How does it affect my application? It really doesn't, apart from that you have this 11 years of experience you can draw on. The big question we would be asking you, and it's just because it's curiosity more than anything else, is why do you want to switch now and do your master's degree? So we would still look at your application in the same way as any applicant, looking at all the documents you've included, looking at references, and then making a decision as to whether we want to move to interview or not. I currently work as a data security researcher, and I'm wondering if the internship can be done part-time or with the company I'm working for. The program is a full-time program. We don't offer a part-time option. So the part-time part is no. If you wanted to stay at the company you're currently working for your internship, they would need to students can find their internships at other companies. They don't necessarily have to go to companies that we have a partnership with. But the key thing is the project you're working on has to qualify. So if you were in a situation where you were like, I'm going to take a leave from my company for 8 months, do the courses, and then I'm going to come back to my company for the internship. I mean, it wouldn't affect whether we admit you or not, if you already had an internship lined up, that's not going to affect the decision. But what we would be asking you for, if you want to do that, is that we need to see a project description from your company, and that includes everything you're going to be working on and details of the project. Our research and business development officers would need to see that and assess whether it was applied research in nature or not. Our faculty supervisors students in this program. So contacted. So for the first 8 months while you're on your courses, you have an interim supervisor or 2 interim supervisors, depending on your concentration, that guide you through the first half. So the interim supervisors are the concentration lead of the concentration you're in, and the program director. The second 8 months on the internship, you switch supervisors, and that person is usually someone whose research and work aligns with your project and who's going to be of most benefit to you. In those cases, we would be advising you. We ask faculty members to indicate interest in projects, but you're also encouraged to reach out to them and ask specific supervisors that you think would be a good choice, if they want to be your supervisor, and usually they say yes. Does being an international student put me at any disadvantage while applying to the MSc-AC program? Do you have any information on the number of international students admitted? So it has no disadvantage to you. The MSc-AC program is a true meritocracy in terms of admissions. So we're not interested in your status in Canada. We're more interested in how great a computer scientist or data scientist or applied mathematician we think you're going to be. So it's really based on quality. Traditionally, we have slightly more international students than domestic. It's varied between a 60-40 in favor of international, 70-30 international, but the international students are from all over the world. But as I mentioned, like, status in Canada is not something we focus on a tremendous amount when we're making an admissions decision. Okay, and I'm just going to answer one final question. How closely associated are the research departments and the MSc-AC program? Very closely. We're very integrated. Students have the same access to courses in the departments as an MSc and PhD student, and you have supervisors from those areas as well from the internship. So we're very tightly integrated into those. Okay, so it is 9 o'clock. That is all the time I have for questions and things. If you have anything specific, please do reach out to me. I sit behind the MSc-AC at CS email address, as does our program assistant, so we will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. If you want a longer conversation, please do book in with us. If you can't find appointment slots, reach out to me directly. I'm happy to take those, and I'll see if I can make something else work. And overall, I mean, I've got a report of all the Q&As that have been asked during this session, so I will try and get back to people individually before the application deadline with specific things, as long as you haven't logged in as an anonymous attendee, because then I can't see who you are. It's been lovely. Thank you for being online. This has been absolutely amazing. Hopefully, good luck with your applications, and please don't forget to come to ARIA on November 26th, and I'll send you all an invitation to that as well. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.